Today, we're going to dive into a pretty revolutionary idea from the 19th century that, believe it or not, completely changed the game for education. It's the story of the Mechanics' Institute. You've definitely seen a building like this, right? Grand, kind of imposing, sitting right in the middle of a city or a town. They just look important. But here's the thing. These incredible places, these palaces of learning, they weren't built for the rich and powerful. Nope. They were built for everyday working people, all based on a radical idea that was about to spread like wildfire across the globe.
So to really get why these buildings even exist, we've got to rewind the clock, back to the Industrial Revolution. I mean, this was a time when the world was changing at a dizzying pace.
Okay, so you've got factories popping up everywhere. Cities are just exploding in size. And at the center of it all, brand new, really complex machinery. And this created a massive problem. Society suddenly needed a whole new type of worker, a mechanic. Someone who could actually understand, build, and, fix these amazing new engines of progress.
The old ways of learning a trade were falling apart, and the universities, well, they were strictly for the elite. So, the big question was, where on earth was this new, technically skilled workforce going to come from?
Well, the answer came from this brilliant grassroots movement. It was an idea for a totally new kind of university, one that was open to absolutely everyone.
And they were called Mechanics' Institutes. The purpose was actually pretty simple, but also incredibly profound. Give working men, the guys who are literally powering this new industrial age, a chance at an education, especially in all those new technical subjects.
And this idea didn't just catch on, it absolutely exploded. After the first few were set up in 1823, the whole concept basically went viral. Just think about it. Within 30 years, there were more than 700 in England alone. And by the turn of the century, look at that number. Over 9,000 institutes all around the world. It was a genuine global phenomenon.
So what was it really like to step inside one of these places, maybe after a grueling 12-hour shift at the factory? Let's take a look.
Now, these were not some little humble schoolhouses. No way. A lot of them were these huge, purpose-built architectural statements, just like the one in Manchester. And when you got inside, you'd find these massive lecture theaters, like this one in Bradford, that could hold hundreds, sometimes even over 1,000 eager students. But the real heart of every single institute was the reading room. I mean, for a tiny subscription fee, a working man could suddenly tap into this whole world of knowledge. Books, newspapers, things that were just completely out of reach for most people before. It was a total game changer. And the curriculum, it was unbelievably diverse. You had the practical stuff, of course, math, geometry, technical drawing, but they also offered languages and public lectures on cool topics like science and travel, and even concerts and art shows. A lot of them were really clever, too, tailoring classes to local industries, like, say, teaching decorative arts for the pottery workers in Stoke-on-Trent.
But wait, how can men work all day and then study at night? Well, this shows just how innovative these places were. They were some of the very first public buildings to install gas lighting. And this wasn't just some gimmick. It was a piece of technology that made their entire mission possible. It literally lit the way for education.
But underneath this really inspiring story of self-improvement, there was something a little more complex going on, a bit of a social tug-of-war. So the dream, the big idea, was that these would be places created by working men for working men. But the reality? Well, it was often pretty different. The truth is, most of them were actually started and run by the middle-class establishment. The factory owners, the doctors, the local priests. So why did they get involved? Well, their reasons were mixed. For sure, they wanted a more skilled workforce. But they also wanted to offer what they called a wholesome alternative to going to the pub. And maybe most importantly, they wanted to make absolutely sure these new gathering spots didn't turn into breeding grounds for radical politics or union organizing. And this, of course, led to some really sharp criticism. Friedrich Engels, for one, didn't pull any punches. In 1850, he wrote that these institutes were basically teaching workers to just accept their place in society, not to question it. That's a powerful argument, seeing them less as schools and more as a tool for social control. So, if there were thousands of these institutes all over the world at their peak, what happened to them? Where are they now? Well, in a weird way, their own success made them obsolete.
As governments finally started funding public libraries and technical colleges towards the end of the 19th century, the original job of the institutes was basically done. The state took over. And sadly, that meant a lot of their magnificent buildings were just torn down.
And this slide really shows the two roads these buildings could take. On the left, you see the incredible Bradford Mechanics Institute, gone forever, demolished in 1972. But on the right, there's the equally grand Leeds Institute. It managed to adapt, it survived, and today it's the city's museum.
And that right there is their real lasting legacy. They didn't just vanish, they evolved. So many of our modern universities, places like Birkbeck in London or Heriot-Watt in Edinburgh, they all started out as mechanics institutes, and countless others became the public libraries, the museums, and the arts centers that are still the beating heart of our cities today.
Just take the Liverpool Mechanics Institute. It eventually turned into a high school, and today it's the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, or LIPA. And one of its most famous supporters and alumni? A guy who actually went to that high school on that very spot? Paul McCartney. How cool is that? From a school for mechanics to a school for rock stars.
And all this kind of brings us to one final thought. The whole idea behind the Mechanics Institutes was this powerful belief that we learn best together, in a real physical space. Now, in our world of online courses and digital classrooms, it really makes you wonder, have we lost something important along the way? Is there still a need for a modern-day Mechanics Institute? Something to think about.